begin today's program, I'd like to offer a warning regarding some of the video material we're going to be showing. It's going to contain partial nudity, racist remarks, and rude and obscene gestures. Our intent is not at all to offend you watching, but rather to inform you about what's on the air so that you can use your judgment. And please feel free to use your judgment if children are in the room during today's program. Cable systems are required by law to offer a public access channel to allow anybody and everybody a chance to air their views on anything, a wide variety of subjects. In most cases, these are amateur productions. Many of them offer viewpoints on everything from self-improvement, French lessons, and everything in between. But public access has also attracted the kooky, the bizarre. It's these shows that have attracted the most attention, of course, especially in the media. And if you are a subscriber to Jones Intercable here in Tampa and you have not been flipping around the dial lately, we're going to show you a sampling of what you might see. By the way, this is paid for and supported by your cable franchise fee. In this show, young women are shown dancing, removing their clothing, engaging in wet t-shirt contests while men cheer them on. How about a show called Race and Reason, where a Nazi supporter spouts his anti-black, anti-Jewish philosophies? And most recently, this video, which has inflamed the community and caused a public outcry from outraged parents who demand that the state attorney's office might consider changing the law to allow for some regulation of public access programming. Basically, what you were seeing was a performance artist. His name is G.G. Allen. It was a show where he made rude and obscene gestures. He was naked, and then in the final part of the show, he defecates in front of the audience, and it ran uncensored on the public access channel. I'd like for you to meet the woman responsible for airing the broadcast of that video in her Jones Intercable show. Her show is called The Morbid Underground. She's with us today, and her name is Susie Smith. Please welcome her. Hello. Her attorney also joins us, Luke LaRoe. Also, the state attorney, Harry Lee Coe, who has some strong opinions on what should be done to regulate public access, and also Ann Vanderbrink. She is a concerned viewer as a mother and a grandmother. Okay, Susie, I'm sure you got a lot more attention from this than you ever wanted to get, airing on the program The Morbid Underground.
That's true.
When you first saw this video, your first viewing of it, what did you think, personally?
Well, I was not offended at all. I thought it was actually humorous, and so did the people I showed it to. They thought it was humorous. I didn't show it to offend anybody. I'm merely a journalist, you know, showing what's currently going on in the music scene.
So you weren't offended personally. You thought it was funny, the defecation and the rude and obscene gestures. Okay. What sort of response did the cable station get after this aired?
I didn't really talk to them, but someone told me that they did get a lot of calls.
Mm-hmm. And then they came to you and said that you were going to be suspended for a year.
They sent me a letter, yes.
Uh-huh. What did they tell you was the reason for it?
They said it went against the policy and procedure guide.
Policy against what?
They said it was obscene material.
Obscene material. Do you consider it obscene?
No.
So, Mr. Coe, what is the policy? I know that you got a lot of response, didn't you? What were people saying to you?
Well, I think the calls we got were calls of outrage, just as I personally was outraged and our staff is personally outraged by this show, but our personal opinions are neither here nor there. We must follow the law, and we're going to follow the law.
Did she break the law?
She did not break the law, because the United States Supreme Court in Miller versus California set out principles that we can put in place in Florida to deal with this sort of conduct or show in the future. And Senator John Grant and Representative Buddy Johnson of Plant City are moving to implement Miller versus California and put in place the ability of the state attorney's office to deal with this sort of show in the future. Our obscenity statute does not deal with excretion or excretory functions. Miller versus California said we can do that. Florida, to this point, has chosen not to do so. I've recommended that the Florida legislature address this and do this in order that we can deal with this in the future. And Senator Grant and Representative Johnson are going to introduce legislation to do just that.
In other words, you are pushing for the law to say that what was on this tape would be ruled obscene and not airable.
That's right. It'll allow us to deal with this. That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Is this censorship, Susie?
Yes.
You don't have any regrets about showing it?
Well, I regret that the audience that saw it, the people who did get offended, I regret that they got offended. I didn't mean to do that to them. But I don't regret showing it.
Let's take a phone call. Linda in Tampa. Go ahead.
Yes, I guess I'm very much against this. We moved from Sarasota to Tampa, and we're flipping through the channels one night and can't believe the girls that are naked, showing their bodies and showing their private parts, and they consider this discrimination if you don't want it. And I feel that children, they stay up all night. It doesn't matter. We couldn't get our kids to bed when they were teenagers before 12 o'clock, so it doesn't really matter when it's aired. I believe that we put people in public office to oversee us when we don't know better. And I think the people in public office should definitely take a hold of this and say, look, if you don't know any better, then I'm going to have to tell you this is not normal. This is filthy, and get it off the air.
Okay. Ian, what do you think?
Well, I think there should be some sort of community standards for Tampa Bay, and I was offended by it. I don't think children should be able to watch that, and like she said, children do stay up late. I mean, I may not permit it at my house, but someone else may permit it at their house, and when they're over at their house, staying up at a slumber party or just all night talking, they can view it.
Mr. Coe?
Jones Intercable themselves didn't endorse this or support this, and they have an ability called parental latchkey to come into your home and code your set in order that this cannot be watched by your children. They can also, if you request, block this channel out. So if you will request that of Jones Intercable, they'll do that either in your home or at their studio by blocking this out.
Would that solve the problem for you, Ann?
No, it would for my home, but like I say, not everyone thinks alike. And someone else, when my child goes to visit them, or my grandchild, well, they may not have the block on, and therefore they would be susceptible to seeing it.
Well, my question is that personally I don't feel children should be watching TV after 8 o'clock, period, anywhere in the state of Florida. I've got a problem with the educational system that we have right now. It doesn't seem to be fulfilling the job, and what's happening is that the kids are watching television rather than sticking to the books where they belong. As for the problem with cable, if a parent is a good parent and they believe their kids is going to abuse the cable system, they should just cancel their subscription and not pay for that and keep the regular broadcast TV and make sure that they can take control over their own household rather than giving the responsibility to the state of Florida or to the federal government. The responsibility belongs at home.
Should be. Of course, not all the parents are capable of doing that. That's the problem.
You see, television was basically, as far as I'm concerned, designed for adult and adult viewing, not for children in any form, in any way.
You must not have preschoolers at home because they are in control of the TV set in many homes. I mean, that's the problem.
But when I was young, I was reading Ivanhoe, Green Mansions, Jules Verne. Kids don't even know what Jules Verne is.
Okay.
Kathy,
Bill in Tampa, go ahead. Take a phone call. Go
Hello. I think one of the points of public access is there for the alternative points of view, and I don't feel that that one person could tell somebody what they should or should not be able to see or what should be allowed to see. In addition to that, I think what's worse is a lot of these producers do this just to get attention, and when Channel 13 puts on shows like this, they're just catering right to what they want, and it seems like that personally offends me.
Well, let me just explain that when we get calls here and the state attorney's office gets calls and parents say, we feel like that there should be some regulation and they're pushing for regulation. The intent of our show is to not play into the hands of producers for shock value. Our intent is to say, if you pay for this on your franchise fee, are you aware that this is going out over the air and how do you feel about it? I mean, Susie, people may say, you showed this for shock value, just to get attention. I mean, basically, he was saying a lot of the producers do that.
Well, Gigi Allen is, I would say, the second most popular act that I show on the show because I get lots and lots of fan mail, and they're like the second most requested act on the show. They're coming around on tour, so Gigi Allen's just like any other band I air. I mean, I just showed what he does.
Well, he did more than what you normally would show, or else you wouldn't be suspended, right?
Well,
I mean, did this go beyond?
That's his choice as a performance artist, and I think that brings into play the broader federal consideration of this. I think in the Cable Act of 1992, there's a specific finding of fact that cable access exists to provide First Amendment ability to the many diversified tastes that make up our society, and that has been addressed by the government. They're trying to take what they consider to be indecent programming and either segregate it to a separate channel or do, as in Susie's case, put disclaimers at the beginning of the program and air it only after 11 o'clock, which is exactly what she did.
Right.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll show you some more video from the public access channel at Jones Intercable. Talking about some of the shows that air on the public access channel on Jones Intercable in this county, Hillsborough County, but other counties as well have cable systems that do offer community access and public access channels, and eventually this argument is going to spread to all of them, and all people are going to have to deal with this issue. Before we went on the air, we showed our audience, our studio audience, a video that we were not allowed to show on this program. It is one of the shows. Is it from Lifestyles of the Up and Coming? Is that what this was from? What you guys saw ahead of time? Yeah. This is from Lifestyles of the Up and Coming. Let's go ahead and show you some of what our audience saw, but we can't show you all of it. So here it is. Okay, wait a minute. Here's the producer of the program, Jim Clement. Stand up, Jim.
Okay, first of all, Kim Looseware, will you marry me? And second of all, I mean that. And second of all, some of these people are offended by my show and they think it should be taken off the air. But in both the Tampa Tribune and Creative Loafing, they took a poll, and Lifestyles was voted, you know, the #1 show on local cable access. So apparently there are some people that feel different from you. So what do you have to say to those people?
Well, I think, are you speaking to me?
Or anybody else that would say, because you have a personal problem with my type of programming, that you should be superior and we should be criminals.
Well, no, I didn't say that at all.
Well, I mean, because you're pushing for legislation to have us, possibly in her case, they wanted her prosecuted. I just went through a whole commission meeting where they violated the very premise of the policies and procedures at public access, regardless of the nature of intent. No one shall be denied airtime or air slot. Now they've moved people who have adult viewing to just 7 spots out of how many?
Okay, who in the audience was offended by the material they saw prior? Okay, stand up.
I was offended by it. And I think the test that Mr. Coe talked about in the Miller case is a community standard test. And I think that if you took a poll of the community as a whole, the average citizen would find it offensive. And that's the standard that we're talking about.
Exactly. What is an average citizen?
An average everyday person, not somebody who is overly tolerant, not somebody who's under-tolerant. And I think that the standard would be that people would find it offensive. I also wanted to respond to Mr. LaRoe's comment about the new Cable Act. It says specifically in the new rules that the purpose of Section 10 is to reduce the exposure of viewers, especially children, to indecent programming on cable access channels. And the new act will provide a way that the cable company... Excuse me, let me finish, please.
Considerations that you would have for your children. We're going to have to live by the same restrictions that you would have your children live by.
Okay, let her finish. Quickly.
All I'm saying is that there, under the new law, there will be provisions for the cable company to not show indecent programming.
What is indecent? Well, you're going to describe for us what is indecent?
Okay, stand up.
In a previous show that you did on this type of programming, remember there was a caller that called in and said her kid fondling, in answer to your question that cable boxes can be locked out, her kid at home was fondling with the remote and was able to deprogram it, and she walked in and was viewing. That came on that last show, and that's one of the problems with airing that type of program.
Kids who can get around.
Kids will get around it, and kids will be seeing it.
All right. Okay, we have to take a break, and now people want to talk about it. We're going to be right back.
Kathy, I'd just like to make a point. When you have lawyers and judges who say the act of defecation is protected by the First Amendment, that shows you, number one, the idiocy of man's laws, and number two, what happens to a society when they supplant God's laws with their own laws. Book of Judges bears that out. So what we have here is a spiritual problem and a moral problem. And if people as individuals want to affect their society for good, they need to, one, covenant with Jesus Christ.
And we forgot the legal problem, too. We got that, too, don't we? I mean, besides moral and spiritual. Then we have a legal problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, judges and lawyers have not said that. You're quite incorrect. The United States Supreme Court says this can be governed and controlled, and that's what
I said,
Senator Grant and Representative Johnson are moving to do.
I didn't say all judges. Some will think this is protected by First Amendment, and that's not right.
Okay. Well, basically, the First Amendment, when you construe any material, whether it be offensive or not, is supposed to be neutral as to the content, whether it be Nazism, whether it be a religious program, or whether it be something like lifestyles of the up-and-coming. If you're going to look at those issues, you have to give equal protection to all the ideas. And if, in fact, you find one segment of it to represent bad speech, the answer is not to censor that, but to meet that with good speech. And only if you're secure in protecting the full spectrum of speech can you be secure in any one aspect of that.
See, I don't think that they should legislate morality. I think that's an individual choice. And if I decide to be immoral, that is my choice. She decides not to be. But I resent the fact that she wants to tell me what my morality should be. That's an individual choice.
Frank and Bartow's on the line. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I just want to say to Susie, though, if she thinks an act of defecation is funny, she needs some serious couch time. And to the long-haired hippie reject from the 60s on the front row, get a life, dude. You're out of touch.
Okay, I would like to say personally, I agree with the point. This lady and this lady over here, I understand that you all are offended and that you think your children are offended, but it kind of gives me the impression that you guys are scared as parents that you can't teach your children. You should be able to teach your kids. If you're a good enough parent, you should be able to teach your child and teach them the moral respect that you have. If that's their choice, then fine, but I mean, it seems like you're scared as parents that you can't control your children.
I think you guys are going to argue all day over who thinks what's obscene and who doesn't. And the fact is, there are two major issues here. One, whether or not this is a First Amendment right, and number two, whether or not a community has the right to set standards for what they think is appropriate. Number one, when anybody has to do is look at the Constitution and examine it. First Amendment has only recently been called in to sanction behavior like this. In the past, the First Amendment was set up by our founding fathers and foremothers to protect people from, being able to speak out against government, not to sanction obscene behavior and things like that. Secondly, a community does have the right to say whether or not they're going to allow certain behaviors to take place. Nevada sanctions prostitution. They think prostitution should be legal, and if you, want to move to Nevada, go ahead. Tampa, we have the right to set a standard for what we want in our community.
Okay.
You disagree? I would directly disagree with that. The law has stated that you don't have the right to set any standard, that when you assess the comparative obscenity, you have to look at the community standard as it exists, not what you'd like it to be, and not what the community standard would be by the most conservative parents' concerns over their children. That is not the standard that's used to assess what it is you're looking at.
Okay, and we'll wrap this up when we come back.
Okay, at 11 o'clock at night, after 11 o'clock at night, why are kids watching TV? Where's the parents? It looks like it's the lack of responsibility on the parents. It all comes back to the parents. I mean, it looks like the kids are watching, but because of parents.
What may be acceptable in my home may not be acceptable.
It came on after 11.
After 11.
And what I was going to say was parents should teach their kids discipline and morals and everything. And when Gigi Allen comes on and does his, parents should be able to say, if they know that they taught their kids right, their kids won't be copying it or anything, and they won't, because if kids have the morals in them, then they know it's wrong,
Okay, what they're showing on public access, they're not going out and creating. You must understand, everything that is shown there is already in the community. The people of public access, myself included, have just gone out, taken cameras there, and have opened it up to a wider audience, but it's already in the community.
Okay. Okay, I'll be right back. You want to speak? You had your hand up for a long time. Go ahead.
What I'm saying is our country is trying to establish family principles. Our president has proclaiming that. And what is there uplifting in this kind of viewing? There is nothing uplifting, nor could they. These kids are adults. What is uplifting in their life?
All right.
The guy in the front, I suggest he get a haircut and also clean up his act and look like a real gentleman.
What do you want to say? She says get a haircut, Jim.
I just want to know if you would be offended if I asked you to let the puppies breathe.
Yes, I would be offended. Thank you very much.
Bottom line is we need to look around and see what our community is all about. If you're a concerned person in this community, stand up and get involved in this issue. Talk to Harry Lee Coe, talk to the Jones Intercable people, and do something. Because when we first got involved, these things were being aired during primetime TV.